So good morning, dear students. Our topic for the day is the work of art in the age of post-truth. And in this discussion, which we will do in two parts, we will deal with the philosophy and the politics of post-truth in the first session. Then we will move to the second session where we will analyze the impact of post-truth in the context of literary studies at present. So the first slide gives you a rough understanding of the nature of post-truth. And one of the most relevant historical facts about the post-truth is that it is a term which gained much currency in the year 2016. And the year 2016 was noted for two important things. The first one was undoubtedly the election of Mr. Donald Trump as the President of the United States of America. The second one was the Brexit, the decision of the United Kingdom to go out of, or the Great Britain to go out of the European Union. And in the context of these two events, it was generally presumed by the theorists, analysts, and critics of the day that there was a kind of a flood of lies and half-truths in order to manipulate the will of the people. And that is why in 2016, Oxford English Dictionary elected post-truth as the word of the year. And what it meant was that objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. I hope you are getting my point, because generally we had a kind of a tendency where we believed things on the basis of the objectivity, or we believed things on the basis of the so-called factual correctness. But presently, this kind of a thinking is diverted to a new paradigm, to a new set, whereby the personal belief of a person determined the truth value of a statement. And it is in this context that we have a kind of a cartoon, like a picture given at the bottom of the slide. In the past, it was like this: I think, therefore I am. You remember René Descartes, the father of modern European philosophy, who made such a statement like cogito ergo sum. So you think, you process, you analyze, and therefore you exist. But on the other hand, in the post-truth era, it's not truth that you believe. I believe, and therefore I am right. For instance, if you believe in a particular political ideology, your truth is determined accordingly. So your political truth, your political belief or your religious belief determines your truth. And I hope you are all familiar with the year 2016, when Donald Trump was using, or the campaign of Donald Trump, how the campaign managers of Donald Trump used actually a set of lies and half-truths in order to manipulate the electoral will of the people of, or the prospective voters of America. So that is the historical context in which the word post-truth gained much currency in the present world. And we have a statement from Adolf Hitler, whose book Mein Kampf is quite notorious for the way in which it presented certain bitter and certain notorious events in history. The most brilliant propagandist technique will yield no success unless one fundamental principle is borne in mind constantly. It must confine itself to a few points and repeat them over and over. So the repetition of an idea over and over, even though it's not true. And actually, the propaganda minister, the Minister for Information and Broadcasting of Hitler, whose name we know obviously, Joseph Goebbels, used this strategy even when Germany was losing in the Second World War. In Germany, the people were told that the Germans had huge success in different areas of the world in the course of the war. So that was the way in which the mind of the people were manipulated. And you also see how in the schools, I mean, in popular narratives like Jojo Rabbit, you could see how the minds of the people, how the minds of the people or how the minds of the young children were manipulated by a particular set of stereotyping supplied to them in the discourses. And you could see this in the movie Jojo Rabbit, whereby the child Jojo was provided in the schools all kinds of misinformation, lies, and half-truths about the Jews. And Jojo believed those things to be true. And your ability to make someone believe these things to be true on the basis of their belief is actually the core of the politics of the post-truth. And it is in this context that we discuss post-truth. And there, the word post-truth, though the word post-truth is current in origin, it doesn't mean that the world, our world, has always been one in which truth had a sort of great importance. It was not the situation. George Orwell, whom you know, through novels like 1984, Animal Farm, etc., made a statement like this years before. Political language, and with variations, this is true of all political parties from conservatives to anarchists, is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind. So what it means is that this has always been the nature of politics. Since the days of Plato, one could say that this question, or since the days of the great philosophers of Plato and Aristotle onwards, political language has been the language of lies, whereby people presented half-truths in the form of a truth. But what is so peculiar about the 21st century is the wide currency. The platforms through which such half-lies and half-truths could be broadcasted among the people. Nowadays, we are living in a world of what is known as information revolution. You have a smartphone with you. You have a Facebook connection. You have, you have a Facebook ID. You have an internet connection. You have so many social media memberships. There are so many fake IDs. There are so many fake online newspapers. And through all these things, so many vague ideas, vague means so many lies or so many half-truths are spread among people, and these things cannot be verified by any authentic media anymore. And this is the very speciality of the modern world, because you will be provided. We live in a world in which in a digital world in which your taste determines what you see, what you read, what you what you are gained to see. And this is the kind of a world that you have. And it is in this context, I hope it is in this context that we have, we are talking about the post-truth. So political language is designed to make lies sound and truthful and murder respectable. But in the modern world, it could be done easily because the current system, in the current system, your Facebook provides you certain items which are similar to what you have searched. For instance, if you have a habit of searching for religious posts, every day in your Facebook wall, something similar to what you have searched the previous day or something similar to what you have searched already exists. And this is actually the kind of a world. So therefore, your thoughts could be easily manipulated, your minds could be easily manipulated. So realities, I mean, masqueraded realities are presented to you according to your belief system very easily in the modern world, exploring the possibilities of the so-called digital media. And there is another statement by Hannah Arendt, who was actually a German philosopher of the 20th century. In Truth and Politics, Hannah Arendt writes, the result of a consistent and total substitution of lies for factual truth is not that the lies will now be accepted as truth and the truth be defamed as lies, but that the senses by which we take our bearings in the real world and the category of truth versus falsehood is among the mental means to this end is being destroyed. So it's not absolutely a world of lies. Don't think that a post-truth era is a world which is structured on lies alone. It is, the philosophical context of the post-truth is that lies will now be accepted. It's not that lies will now be accepted as truth and truth be defined as lies, but that the sense by which we take our bearings in the real world is being destroyed. So our ability to distinguish between truth and falsehood is destroyed. And it is in such a world anybody can say anything, or any reality could be presented in any way in the modern world. And this is actually the great, or this is actually one of the consequences, not the great, this is actually one of the consequences of being in the post-truth world. Anything can be said by anybody because you have an idea on something. You can fabricate images, you can fabricate ideas, you can fabricate, solid what appears, solid truths to validate your statements. And these fake means or these fake strategies actually destroy your illusion of a truthful world. And once you are, once it is established that there is no truth that exists, actually this is an idea. The absence of a truth is an idea that gained much currency in the postmodern age. So in the postmodern age, postmodernism as an ideology or as a philosophy, not as an ideology, as a philosophy, communicated to the world that truth is a contingent reality or truth is a provisional thing. Or postmodernism for the first time asserted powerfully that truth and power are related. And there are statements from Foucault like, statements from Foucault like knowledge is, power is knowledge, inverting the classical dictum of knowledge is power. So postmodernism's claim, this kind of a claim of postmodernism that truth is provisional or truth is constructed by discourses is exactly the starting point of post-truth itself. But the major difference is that in post-truth, this kind of an understanding of truth, the politics of post-truth and postmodernism, or the difference between the politics of post-truth and postmodernism is the one that in the post-truth politics, generally the majorities are gained by the aspect or gained by the theory that truth is a construct. Whereas in the postmodernist discourses, theorists like Lyotard or theorists like Baudrillard tried to convey the fact that it was the minority groups, the fringe groups whose voices were muted, benefited from the construction of truth aspect. But now there is an inversion of it or a reversal of the dictum that existed during the postmodernist era in what is known as the post-truth. And accordingly, in the post-truth phase, what you have is the dominance. What you have is the dominance of a kind of a version in which the majority can easily, woo their followers by a set of lies, by a set of half-truths propagated as truths. And that is why you can see people like Arnab Goswami in the Indian context can woo a large number of audiences through his what could be described as his monologues over the television. People with good communication skills can, in fact, with the aid of media, with the aid of fake websites, or even, I mean, true websites, they can communicate and they can easily manipulate the minds of the people. So this is it. Post-truth is a majority-centered kind of identity politics, whereas postmodernism was a minority-centered identity politics. So the politics of postmodernism was giving a voice to the voiceless, whereas using the same strategy in the post-truth era, the majority-centered politicians, the majority-centered conservatives tried to echo their ideas about everything. Now we come to the history of the concept. It was actually a term. Post-truth as a term did not originate in 2016. As a term, it is proposed by Steve Tesic, a Serbian playwright, in 1992 in the book The Nation. But the word was not very current at that time. And in 2004, actually, you had a book called The Post-Truth Era, written by Ralph Keyes. And even the publication of the book did not gain much currency. But later, after 2016, two books. One was the book by Matthew D. Ancona, which is Post-Truth, The New War on Truth and How to Fight Back. And the Post-Truth by Lee McIntyre. Actually, most of the ideas that I'm using in this presentation are ideas from Lee McIntyre and Matthew D. Ancona. And these are some of the major books which dealt with the post-truth era. And actually, the Malayalam term for post-truth, I mean, the widely accepted Malayalam term for post-truth is Satyanandan, the age after truth, or the period after truth, because what it means is that truth is no more meaningful in the present world. Or exactly what is presented as truth, according to your belief system, is more meaningful and more important to you. And this is actually the context in which we have this discussion of the post-truth. Now, one of the most important theories of the present is Yuval Noah Harari. And Yuval Noah Harari could not be described as a theorist of post-truth in the strict sense of the term, but he is one of the most important historians and philosophers of the present. And he was giving a slightly different idea about the post-truth world in his famous book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And I can give you a quotation from the book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. In fact, humans have always lived in the age of post-truth. Homo sapiens is a post-truth species whose power depends on creating and believing fictions. So one of the major ideas in Harari is the ability of the human beings to create fiction. And actually, in the history of human beings, which Harari gives in his most important book, Sapiens, what he says, or what he finds as an important landmark in the history of the evolution of sapiens, is the cognitive revolution. And the cognitive revolution is the phase in which human beings gained the ability to create and believe in fictions. So the human religions, the human ideologies, all our systems are actually dependent on our ability to create and believe in fiction. We believe in something like Marxism presently because a thinker called Marx could create a fiction, and he could enable all the people to believe in that fiction called Marxism. And all the religions are like that. Human beings are exactly, I mean, most of us are religious people. So, I mean, if you analyze religion in a systematic way, what it means is that as a species, you are, as a species, you have this ability to create and believe fictions. This ability to create and believe in fictions, that is exactly the most important aspect of your life as a sapien in this world. So ever since the Stone Age, self-reinforcing myths have served to unite human collectives. Indeed, Homo sapiens conquered this planet thanks above all to the unique human ability to create and spread fiction. So we have this great ability to spread fictions. So the great Roman Empire was a fiction. United States is a fiction. Dollar is a myth. The great the great India, Mahabharata is a myth. So all these myths are powerful enough to unite the people. Even Indian National Congress, which gave us independence, was a myth. So it was a myth which was created by certain, certain thinkers in India primarily, and then people of India believed in that fiction, and they unitedly fought for the independence of India at that time. So we, as a species, sapiens as a species, Homo sapiens as a species, had this great ability, and that is why we are always, or the very essential nature of human beings is this ability to believe in, believe in fictions and accordingly structure the world. We are the only mammals that can cooperate with numerous strangers because only we can invent fictional stories, spread them around, and convince millions of others to believe in them. You think of any idea, for instance, Marxism is an international concept, Christianity is an international concept, Islam is an international concept, and the believers of a religion. You know that we hardly know about 10,000 believers of a particular religion. In the case of major religions like Christianity, major religions like Islam, we know that we, as people, we just know only a set of believers of the world. We only know, a very limited number of believers of the world. But we have a kind of camaraderie among all the believers of the world, and that is why human beings are always described as a kind of post-truth species. And it is in this light. This idea of Harari is really very important when we discuss post-truth. I would say that the concept in which Harari presents post-truth is more important than the way in which post-truth is presented in other theories. As long as everybody believes in the same fictions, we all obey the same laws and can thereby cooperate effectively. So what is known as, capitalism is a myth. Capitalism is also a post-truth kind of a thing. Everything. We believe in large corporations of the world. We believe in, we believe in the United Nations. We believe in the United States. We believe in nationalism. We believe in religions. All these are actually ideas which are created by sapiens, and actually it is our very ability to follow, it's our very ability to believe in fictions make us sapiens. So what it means is, what Harari means, contrary to the thinking of many contemporary philosophers, is that post-truth has been in existence since the beginning of what is known as the cognitive revolution. So this is Harari's central idea, and it is in this sense that we should see the term post-truth. So we always believed in certain fictions, or what is known as the life of human beings, or what is known as the life of humans, were structured on certain self-reinforcing myths. And on the basis of these self-reinforcing myths, or Harari uses another term in the book Sapiens, certain collective delusions. He describes religions as collective delusions of the people. All political ideologies are also collective delusions. Even, the 100-rupee note that you hold is a collective delusion, and that is why you go to a shop, you give this 100-rupee note, and the shopkeeper gives you something that is worth 100 rupee. After all, what you give is a piece of paper painted a particular way. But the kind of a collective delusion that people have on the basis of it is really very striking. Similarly, the dollar is something like it. So this is the way that our life is structured, and this is a very important idea by Yuval Noah Harari. Now, in the case of Lee McIntyre in the book, Lee McIntyre is not an original philosopher, but what he does is he's somebody who collects the different perspective about post-truth, and he argues that innovation in the post-truth phenomenon is not a denial of the existence of truth and facts. One important idea that I should reinforce at this stage is that post-truth is not a substitute for a world which is based on lies. It is not a denial of the existence of truth and facts. So don't think that post-truth is a world which is entirely founded on lies, but rather is the subjugation of facts to personal preconceptions and a subjective perspective. So, as I told you in the beginning, it is the kind of a world which is organized around your belief. I believe, and therefore I am right. So, why do you think that a particular phenomenon is true? Why do you think that homeopathy is true? Because I believe in homeopathy. Why do you think that Ayurveda is true? Because I believe in Ayurveda. I know the power of Ayurveda. That is the truth for you. Rather than in science, we have often told that one of the most important features of science that was established during the period in European history, which is known as the phase of enlightenment, is that observation, experiment, and validity of a hypothesis makes science. You observe, you experiment, and you present, your findings in a conclusive manner before an authentic group of professionals. And this is what is generally the methodology of science. And this was the methodology of science that we followed in the modern times. But post-truth says that, truth is something that exists according to my set of beliefs. So therefore, an average German in Hitler's Germany believed that Jews are evil, Jews are nasty people. So, people believe according to their preconceptions. So believing certain ideas according to the preconception of people. So, if you hate another person for no reason other than your personal conception, it's actually one of the most important problems in the modern world. And politicians, or certain politicians, have found that the post-truth world can be of immense use to them, immense gains to them. But rather, it's the subjection of facts to personal preconceptions and a subjective perspective. So, the reinforcement of subjective perspectives through narratives is something that functions as the very essence of the post-truth. So according to McIntyre, in the post-truth era, some facts are more important than others, and the criterion that a person uses to prefer one fact over another is the extent that the fact concurs with his opinion and his personal perspective. So you select certain facts. So what the great religious preachers are doing. The religious preachers bring people who can give testimony to the ability of their ability to cure people. One of the most important aspects of religious preaching in all religions is the ability to cure people or the ability to perform miracles. And as a testimony to this, what they do is they bring people who can give a testimony about the great ability of this faith healer. And those people who are there to listen to this healer believes in the stories told by these faith healers. I know that you have all watched the Fahad Fasil movie directed by Anwar Rashid, released in February 2020, Trance. And in Trance, you can see how a set of people who own a kind of a personal preconceptions or and a subjective perspective are further reinforced in their notions by the presence of people who can give either true or false testimony. So these testimonies need not be true, but certain people who live under the illusion of certain certain preconceptions might believe that I was cured by that preacher. So there are people who believe in the great ability of the preachers, and they come and give testimony to the great ability of the preacher. And then if you have a kind of a mind due to which if you believe in the great ability of such people, you say that, okay, what a great person he is. This is the way that, in the world, ideas or what is known as half-truths or what is known as lies are circulated very easily. So that is it. A person uses to prefer one fact over another. So you don't believe in the fact that you are cured by modern medicine, but rather by the prayer of this preacher. So this is actually the most dangerous aspect of what is known as the post-truth. Then one of the philosophers who could be considered as the foundation of post-truth is Bruno Latour, whose books like Laboratory Life, Science in Action, We Have Never Been Modern are really very important. Now, um, why has critique run out of steam? From Matters of Fact to Matters of Concern is a 2004 essay written by Bruno Latour. And the essay gives certain insights about, the kind of a post-truth world in which we live at present. So, the constructionist philosopher, what Bruno Latour says is facts are not objective. According to Latour's constructionism or constructivism, facts are not objective, not because there is no reality and there are no facts, but rather the facts are contingent. Contingent means by chance. Contingent upon consciousness and human activities and are created or constructed during human scientific research processes. So, according to Latour, therefore, the post-truth phenomenon is not the product of his ideas and those of his associates, but rather the phenomenon validates them. So, actually, post-truth has an entirely different methodology. As I told you, the methodology of post-truth is the very occurrence of an idea itself is actually the evidence. It is not, not based on facts and truth, as I told you a short while ago. Facts are not, post-truth, according to Latour, facts are not objective, not because there is no reality. So, not because, facts are not realistic or facts are not based on reality, not realistic, but no, facts are not based on reality. And there are no facts that facts are contingent upon consciousness. So the truth value of a fact is determined by your mind. So, as a human being, you may not be in a position to believe that the earth revolves around the sun rather than the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So if you are somebody who is not trained in modern science to believe in these things, you believe that actually, the sun, every day, I see the sun rising in the east, and every evening I watch the sun setting in the west. So to such a person, you cannot convey the fact that no, it's not so. It's actually a kind of a situation which happens as a result of the movement of or the rotation of as a result of the revolving of Earth. And basically, this is the way that our consciousness or this is the way that our thinking pattern is constructed or structured. We are structured in certain particular ways. For instance, what is known as creationism. Creationism is the belief that people are created by an all-powerful God. For instance, if you are a believer of creationism, you believe in the fact that this world is created by a God, and you reject outright the very theory of the evolution proposed by scientists like Charles Darwin, because facts are contingent upon consciousness and human activities contingent upon consciousness and human activities and are created or constructed during human scientific research process. So you take the effects, not the cause, and the cause-effect relationship. This is what actually Bruno Latour says about the modern world. Now, one important book which is relevant to modern understanding of the world post-truth is the book On Bullshit by Harry Frankfurt. And in the book On Bullshit, Harry Frankfurt says that the modern era or the post-truth era is an era of bullshitting. And actually, generally we take the term bullshit as an abusive term, but it is the title of a book written by Harry Frankfurt. And he says that a post-truth, a person who resorts to post-truth is not actually a liar. So what is the difference between the liar and the bullshitter? Both the liar and the bullshitter want to convince their audiences that they are telling the truth. Both try to conceal something from their audiences. So a liar knows that he is telling, not the truth. He is telling a lie, maybe in order to escape from a dangerous situation, is telling a lie. And this is exactly the strategy that is used by a bullshitter as well. So, as I told you, these people who resort to the effect of post-truth. The difference between them is that the liar accepts the differentiation between truth and falsehood and is deliberately lying to conceal the truth from his audience. So when you are a liar, you know that maybe you have stolen something from somebody, and when the teacher or when a police officer, rather than the teacher, a police officer asks you about the event, you simply deny it. I haven't done anything. If you have proof, you just prove it. So you do it at the time when you know that you have done it. But the bullshitter, on the other hand, does not recognize and even rejects any differentiation between truth and falsehood. This is the basic difference. For the attempt of a bullshitter is to cancel out all differences between truths and lies. And this is really very dangerous. And that is why Harry Frankfurt describes the modern post-truth era as the era of bullshitting. And essentially does not care whether his statements have any value of truth and tries to conceal his indifference to the truth from his audience. So what is presented in the post-truth era is a world with little difference between truth and lies, or with little difference between truths, half-truths and lies. This is actually what the bullshitter is doing. So the modern world is a world in which we have the predominant, we have a world in which we have the dominance of what is known as such a set of bullshitting people. So the modern world is a world dominated by such bullshitting people who can easily manipulate, who can easily shape the thinking, the thinking and consequently the acting of the people in particular ways, whereby what they are doing is they cancel out all differences between truths and lies. And that is the most important point. The bullshitter does not recognize and even rejects any differentiation between truth and falsehood. So actually you establish a fact that there is no difference between truth and falsehood. So this is actually the most important aspect of the modern world that we are living. So you repeat a half-truth or a lie for plenty of times and it becomes truth, and we live in such a world. So according to these philosophers, it is very dangerous to live in the post-truth era, because the post-truth era is an era in which you have the dominance of half-truth and lies. So this is an idea that I already introduced, because postmodernism, as I told you, postmodernism was actually the starting point of post-truth, because it was the postmodernist philosophers who generally presented, as I told you, who generally presented the hypothesis that truth is relative, truth is provisional, truth is contingent. But in the post-truth era, the so-called myth that anything goes and this is my truth. One of the major assertions of post-truth is that this is my truth, this is my subjective truth, because postmodernism gave much value to the concept of subjective truth. Of course, this is to validate the claims of the minorities. For instance, in order to protect the minority people, for instance, in the context of India or in the context of the world, indigenous minorities have to be protected, and the discourses of the indigenous minorities are often neglected in the names of modern science. So in order to protect the ethnic identity of the indigenous communities, mostly what we often do is that we assert the truth value of many of their assertions by emphasizing the value of alternative truths, because the values of the dominant communities emerged in the world just as a result of a particular way of power structuring in the world. So that is why postmodernism is described as a celebration of what is known as the subjective truth. On the other hand, in the post-truth era, what happens is that this rejection of truth by the postmodernist philosophers themselves gave the platform for the post-truth politicians, for the post-truth preachers to articulate their rather vicious ideas. And that is why anything goes kind of an ideology where truth and lies cannot be separated emerged precisely because of what is known as the postmodernist concept of the subjective truth. And yeah, this is the, I mean, with this, I'm trying to conclude my first session of this presentation of post-truth. So far, I was dealing with the emergence of the concept of post-truth, how it gained currency in the present, and its historical origins and its philosophical implications. Now, in the next session, we are going to see how the politics of the post-truth is related to the concept of art and literature at present. So, thank you for your patient listening. Thank you very much.